We're here to discuss a new topic that I'm just waiting for confirmation. If anybody is watching, please let me know. Can you hear me now? Okay. So we're here to discuss the topic where everyone from my generation and younger generation has this question like, why do I need to practice yoga when I feel completely okay? How is this going to benefit me? Because I feel okay, I'm healthy, I'm educated, and my take on yoga is very different. So, my argument is that it's not only essential for today's generation, but it can also help so many medical problems that are arising today. And so, this is my take or my definition of yoga. Now, what is yoga? There are many definitions out there. You must have read in books from different saints and gurujis. They are all right in their own respect. They are right. But my definition as a doctor who has studied and practicing allopathic medicine, this is my definition. It is disciplining of your mind and body so you can live disease free. Again, let me repeat it. It is a disciplining of your mind and body so you can live disease free. So this is the my definition of yoga. Now, why is this so important in today's age? Why do I have to talk and spend time researching on this, right? So in my practice, I have started seeing more younger and younger people who are coming up with illnesses that younger and healthy people who don't have who are not supposed to be having those illnesses because they have not been introduced to yoga at all. They don't have the understanding of yoga at all because their schools, their parents, or teachers, no one has insisted on practicing yoga daily. So their minds are trained in a particular way. It's not wrong. What I'm not blaming the modern schools. It's but they are trained in only a particular way. So let's see what the yogic mind is and what the modern school minds are. Now, this brings us to the first slide. As always, I'm not going to use many medical and technical terms. I'm going to keep the conversation very simple and so everybody can understand and benefit. So this here, you have a slide of the modern, of your mind. And here you see the picture of the human brain as looking from above. This is the picture of the human brain. This is in the medical books where you look at it from the above. So this is the left side, this is the right side. And here you are seeing in a yogic definition. This is now, so when you look at this is from above and this is looking from the front. So this will be the left brain, this will be the right brain. Now, we will spend a lot of time on this picture for you to understand why we need to understand yoga. Now, and you can appreciate the differences between the two schools of thought. So, in the yogic schools, the Shiva or Pingala is in the right side of the brain, and left side of the brain is Ida or Shakti. Again, now don't consider this as a religious talk, okay? The Shiva and Shakti were named like that several centuries ago because those were the common terminologies that people will remember. If today I was to rename them, I would say Harry and Potter because that is what people today will remember easily, right? So those were the terminologies. If I say Ida and Pingala and complicated Sanskrit terms, it will be difficult for people to remember and recall. So the concept is important. We are not, don't pay too much attention to the religious names. So I'm going to explain the concept of Pingala and Ida. Now Pingala is the left side of the brain, and this is equivalent to this one. This is the analytical brain, right? So where you have ordered sequencing, rational thought, planning, you read math and science, logical thinking. These are all the schools of thought that you learn in your schools and colleges and universities. And this is also where the 5 senses are. The 5 senses of the body is in the Pingala. Now in the left side of the brain is where the Shakti is. And this is related to the... So if you're getting confused, your Ida, raise your left hand and touch your brain. Raise your left hand and touch the brain. That part of the brain is your Ida. Sorry, that part of the brain, raise your right hand and touch the right side of the brain. That will be your Ida. This is the Ida and this is the Pingala. Now the Ida was dealing with more subtle part of the brain, right? Now it helps in developing intuition, holistic perception, emotional thought, non-verbal communications, impulse creating, writing, art, imagination. Now those are all on the right side of the brain. So if you raise your right hand and touch the brain, that is the Ida. If you raise the left side of the hand and touch the brain or your head, that is the Pingala. So just understand these two concepts, and we will be using this for the next slides. Now left part is the analytical brain. It also controls the 5 senses of the brain, and that is where the knowledge lies, because that is where you're learning new things and you're storing new things. And here is where the processing occurs in the Ida. Now in all the modern schools, we are more focused on the Pingala or on the knowledge development. So very less focus is being done on the Ida. Now yoga is the only science that says there has to be a balance between the Pingala and the Ida, or the left and the right side of the brain. So how do we balance? So the senses should be balanced with the Atma. So this is the Atma or the soul of the body, and these are the senses of the body, right? So they say that these two has to be balanced in order for us to lead a happy life. Now, one of the common example that I tell people is Tiger Woods. Everybody knows Tiger Woods, one of the best golf player. He has probably a very good left brain development and power. He has highly intelligent and very good strategies, but he did not have a way to control his urges. So then he got addicted. He had sexual addiction, and that brought his career and his personal life down. So that's a very common example. But again, you can always argue saying they're celebrities, we don't know what happens in their life. So, but that is the most common example that I can tell where when there is an imbalance between the Pingala and Ida, some kind of unhealthy thought arises when there is too much of Pingala and very less of Ida. That is what we are facing in the today's generation. So we are always focusing on satisfying the 5 senses, correct? Which is seeing, visual senses, taste, hearing, skin senses, and seeing. So those are the 5 senses we are trying to satisfy, right? Because we always want to wear the clothes or go to places like others do. We want to have careers like other people do. We don't know why we want, but we want them. So that is the it is also good. Competition is good, but it's more of a feeling of arising from jealousy. So that is the kind of path the youth is taking. So in other words, Atma says, or the Ida says, that we have to find a way to get the inner happiness. Pingala focus on the outer happiness, right? And Ida focuses on the inner happiness. And they say we need both, right? We have to have a balance of these two in order to find a happy state of mind. And that's why yoga is the only science that says all diseases arises from a state of mind. Now, this is the concept you have to understand before we go to the next slides. Because every disease arises from a thought process that arises from your mind. So how does yoga help to bring about the balance between the Ida and Pingala? So that is what we are going to talk now. So I don't want to get too much into the depth of this. If there is any questions, we can go over that later. Now this brings us to the next slide, which is the yoga. So the Hatha yoga is what everybody thinks of, right? When I say yoga, as soon as I say yoga, this is what we talk about. Asanas, right? We think about asanas. No, that is only 1/5 of the yoga. It's a good one. It's nothing bad about it. It's very, very essential. But there is other kinds of yoga that we are not talking about much, or we are not focusing. Because why? Because it is little bit more complicated. Now this is, of course, stretches, asanas, pranayamas. And now this table is from the Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. It's called Ashtanga, the 8 limbs. So this is from the Patanjali Sutras I took from. He's like considered the father of yoga. So this is one part of the yoga. Then we have the other 4 main types, which the names are very familiar. If you grow up in India, you will know what is Raja Yoga. Raja Yoga is becoming a mastery over your thoughts, both positive and negative. Raja means like discipline. He's the one who's ruling. So you have a mastery over your thoughts. Now, last month, I went over a concept of Antar Mauna for depression. That is also part of the Raja Yoga. Antar Mauna. This is a very interesting yoga concept. So even today, what we spoke about, Pingala and Ida, is also part of the Raja Yoga. So I will be introducing some complicated concepts in my talks from Raja Yoga, but I will try to simplify it so everybody can understand the importance. Now, Jnana Yoga is the path of self-realizations and self-inquiry, usually done by meditation and pranayamas. Now, this is what most of the Indian saints and gurus, most of them, they follow this. Isha Yoga, Sri, and every big gurus, they follow this kind of a yoga. This is also very detailed oriented. It focuses on self-reflection, and it's very, very highly powerful, if you spend some time on it. The next beautiful thing is I want to talk about is Karma Yoga. Now, this is interestingly, this is practiced both by atheists and believers or conformists. So you can believe in God or you don't have to believe in God. This is a very interesting concept, how our yogis several centuries ago, they said if you don't believe in any of these yogas or you don't believe in God, you can still practice Karma Yoga. Now, what does Karma Yoga say? It is a selfless service in your action. So many atheists who don't believe in God or religious practices, they will just say, I don't have to have rules. I am going to be a civilized human being and I'm going to help others along the way. That is what karma is, without expecting anything in return. Now, one of the best example I can think of as a karma yogi is Gandhi. Of course, he was a believer. He was a very strong believer of Hinduism, but at the same time, he didn't go to an ashram and meditate. He says, "I'm going to utilize the knowledge I have." You know, he was an attorney. I'm going to utilize that, and I'm going to help my people, not for money, not for popularity, or not to gain some awards or anything, but he just did this for as a selfless service. So that is a perfect example of karma yogi. Now coming to bhakti yogi, now the word is very familiar. If you are in India, you will know it is nothing but simple devotion to God. Now this is for the simple people who don't want to learn the complicated things of all the others, and this is very commonly practiced in all religious organizations. Okay, whether it can be any religion. Now this is the path they chose, right? They follow a set of rules given in their books, and they pray, and they teach the next generation the same thing. So this is also the basis for celebrating festivals. Now every country gives a national holiday for so many festivals they celebrate. This is the basis for bhakti yoga, because that is the way of teaching our kids the importance of prayer, importance of receiving blessings, importance of asking for forgiveness and surrendering to God, things like that. So these are the different limbs of yoga. Again, there are beautiful, beautiful books if you want to read in depth. You know, we can talk about this for a long time, but you know, that is not the purpose of this talk. I want to focus on how this knowledge is going to help you lead a happy and a healthy life. Why is all this knowledge important? So that is going to be the gist of my talk. So I'm going to introduce a small 1-minute story that's a real story that happened in my workplace. So they are both husband and wife, a couple who are both surgeons. They work in the hospital. And one day, I'll try and make the story very short, and then we will discuss the yogic application to the story. So this couple, one day the wife came home early from work. You know, she got done, and then she was spending time with her 15-month-old girl. She noticed that the girl was a little fussy than the normal, and she took the girl outside to the mall. And there also she was a little fussy. And then she realized that maybe it's time to change the diaper, like what most parents would do. And she didn't know this would change her life, because what she saw while changing the diaper was bright red burnt skin in the size of hot iron, like an iron box that was extremely tender on each buttock of the child. Needless to say, she was very shocked. She rushed to the hospital, to the same emergency room that she worked. One look and the ER physician knew that this was second-degree burns that was done intentionally. It was not done accidentally. It was very clear by the shape and the size of the burn on the buttocks. And the child was taken away immediately from the mother. No communication or explanation was given. The father arrived. Even he was forbidden from seeing the child. Clearly, by now, the couple was in complete anguish, didn't know what was happening. The cops arrived, and they said parents have to proceed with the lawyer legally to see the child, because they were charged with physical abuse and possibly sexual abuse. So the next few weeks, the couple went through horrible hours of court proceedings before they got permission to see the child. This was only in the vicinity of the cops initially. And then the story, after doing some investigation, they found out that the nanny of the house was abusing the child. And they couldn't prove it was a nanny. So by the time they proved it, it became 6 to 8 months before they proved that the parents were innocent. And then the child was given to the parents. But unfortunately, by then, the couple had already gone through a huge emotional struggle in their personal lives and outside lives, social lives, with all these downfall of incidents, they ended up divorcing after that. They ended up divorcing. So now the child is about 7 to 8 years old, but still they are in the court fighting for child custody. So they are that is the sad situation. So now in this story, now I have this brings us to the next slide. So what are the questions? The number one question is, how did a beautiful family like this tear apart so quickly? So there was no basic understanding or love, right? No understanding between the nanny and the parents, or the parents and the daughter, or between the couple. There was no understanding, right? That is the truth, correct? So otherwise this wouldn't have happened. Now, why didn't anyone see this coming? Now that is a very why this was happening. This is not the first time. When they investigated, they realized that every time the nanny had an argument with the couple or with any member in the family, she would the baby was an easy target for abuse. So why didn't they see this coming? So they had no intuition, right? So they had no intuition. So when you're hiring someone to do work in your house, whether it's your driver who's dropping off the kids, whether it's a person taking care of your loved ones or your elders, anybody, so we should see them as a family member, because that person has access to everything of your personal care, right? You're starting from, they know what brands you use, which phone numbers, who do you call on the phone. They know your toothpaste, they know your kids' shoe size, everything. They have access to so much information. So your duty would be to know something about them, right? So my idea would be like, in order to how to develop this intuition, you spend time with them at least once a week, and talk to them. General questions. You can ask them about how their day is, how their family is doing, things like that. So that'll give you some understanding of who the people living in the house is. Now, is the nanny to be blamed for all the misfortunes? No, probably not. So there is no compassion here. So the couple have been so busy in their lives, they didn't know that they have to spend time with the family members at home. Now, the interesting part is, after the story was heard in the hospital or at workplace, a lot of the other doctors became more paranoid. And what did they do? When they listened to the story, they started putting hidden cameras in their rooms, and they started doing FaceTime every hour. And they started asking neighbors and friends to check on the nanny. Now, this all will increase anxiety, but it's not going to solve the problem, because all it takes for the nanny is just 5 seconds to hurt your loved one, right? So how much can you monitor them? So you have to develop compassion towards those workers who are working for you. Yes, they are working for money, but you have to have compassion. If you show them compassion, they are going to show you 5 times more compassion. But if you treat them with suspicion and guilt, then they are going to make it really worse for you. And this is something that we have to learn from the story. Now, how did such an educated couple fail to see the cruelty happening under their roof? What is this no holistic perception? What is this holistic approach? So this brings us to the slide where I was talking about the 2 brain pictures, where, we are focused more on the senses, satisfying the senses, but we don't understand what really makes us happy inside. So the couple was focused on their job salary, their careers, their social life, party life, but they did not realize what was happening inside the house. It can be anybody, kids, elders, workers, whoever. You have to have an understanding of their emotions that is happening inside the house. I'm not saying you have to listen and agree with everything. It is good to have arguments, have the necessary arguments, but resolve them. So that will build a connection, it will build a bond. And but if you don't even try to investigate or have an argument and just overlook those things, then it will burst open like this someday. So that is the part of the holistic perception. Now, why did the couple not use this bitter experience to build a stronger relationship and provide a happier environment for the kid instead of parting ways? So, no emotional growth. So, in my opinion, actually, the couple was not emotionally connected even before the incident happened. Why? If they did, they would have handled this very differently, correct? They must have been, again, same thing. They must have focused on satisfying the five senses or the left side of the brain, that they did not pay attention to what was happening to the inner happiness, the inner self. So they did not grow or develop connection as a couple, and that is also one of the biggest reasons for divorces that are happening today, right? We see a lot of youngsters that go through divorces so often, and which is only increasing. And for some reason this is not taught in our universities and colleges and all that, correct? So this is not something that we learn in the universities, the holistic perceptions. So this is all available in the yogic school of thought. Now I just want to bring that picture here again. So all those ones that I marked in red are concepts of Ida. No love and understanding, no intuition, intuitive thought, no compassion, emotional thought, holistic perception, here, holistic perception, emotional growth. So these are all the top factors that are taught in Ida, correct? That is missing in our schools. Now coming back to the story. Now the biggest person who suffered in this is that little girl. Can you imagine the mental trauma the poor girl must have experienced growing up in this volatile environment, right? From the age of 15 months or so, she was physically abused by the nanny. After that, she was taken away to the child protection services and she was kept there away from her family. Then she had to face her parents going through the divorce. Then she's facing the custody battle in the court. Now, will this child who's growing up have more psychological illnesses? Yes. As she grows up, she will be facing more and more psychological illnesses and other medical illnesses too. So this is just one family that, or one story that I wanted to explain how an educated, a healthy, and a modern family can just break apart if they don't understand the yogic principles, right? These are very simple principles, but for some reason it is not being taught the way it should. We are always focused on the left brain development. The right brain development, where the Ida is where all these concepts are hidden. Now, so when these kids grow up in such families, with broken families, this is where they come to the doctor. And they don't come to the doctor with this story, right? They come with as a 14-year-old with drug addiction, 18-year-old with depression and suicidal ideas, 22-year-old with severe back pain, 26-year-old with uncontrolled hypertension, 30-year-old with anger management, unable to sustain a job, 34-year-old with breast cancer. So younger and younger patients are coming to the doctor, falling sick for no reason, because they have a healthy body, but they don't have a healthy mind. So this must stop here. And the yoga can be the answer for all the sufferings. So that is my thought process. And before we end, I want to tell you about the Yoga Sutra. I always like to end with the Yoga Sutras because they are the ones that are teaching us the science of health and wellness. So here it is, Tato Mano Javitvam Vikarana Bhave Pradana Jayacha. I'm going to repeat. Tato Mano Javitvam Vikarana Bhave Pradana Jayacha. When you become free from the constraints of your sense organs, then you begin to perceive the quickness of the mind and you no longer sway in the phenomenal world. So it is. So this is exactly how we went through that whole scenario before, right? Now it is much like when you are driving in on a road trip for long hours. So when you do this, you must have encountered this at least once. Those who go on road trip, your eyes will be still open, your hands are on the steering wheel, your feet is on the accelerator, your ears are listening to the music, your mouth is sipping coffee. All the five sense organs are working perfectly fine, and occasionally you will doze off for a few seconds. And when you wake up, you'll have to slap yourself hard to awaken your senses again in order to save your life. And this slap on the cheeks is your awareness. Now, in the story that I mentioned, the slap on the couple's cheek was when the child was taken away to the Child Protection Services. Now, instead of awakening, they resorted to fighting with each other. So, if you don't know where to start your awareness or mindfulness practice, yoga and meditation is a way to go. You can start with any kind of yoga. You can start with Hatha Yoga also. That is also a good place to start. And regrettably, this is not taught in most of the schools and institutions that we study. And we as parents have a responsibility to educate ourselves and our future generation so we all can lead a life filled with gratitude, faith, and love. So the amount of love you give and receive is a direct reflection of your state of awareness. So this is the concept of yoga that I like to talk about. And I hope I can bring about more interesting concepts from yoga in the future. And there are wonderful books on yoga. If you want to read more, please message me. There are big books that, if you want to delve into it, it's beautiful. And you will learn, you will start to discover new things, and you will create your own definition for yoga. For me, yoga is all about health. So I focus on that is how I teach myself, and I teach my patients also how to develop this kind of healthy practice. So until next time, this is Sahila. Thank you so much. We'll meet again with another topic next time. Thank you.